Hey guys, it's Adam from WizPixel, and I am very excited to share with you the first prototype of an accessory that I think iPad Pro artists are going to be very excited about. A little while back, I put out a review and comparison between a whole bunch of different iPad Pro stands for artists exclusively, because this is an artist channel first and foremost. And the one that ended up winning first place overall for build quality, for design, for adjustability, for stability, for rigidity was the MagFloat stand by the company CharGen Pro. And that company has very quickly come to earn the reputation of producing very high quality products that look like they could, quote, be made by Apple. And I agree with that. Since then, I put out a studio tour review where I showcase the MagFloat VESA mount version of this that I have mounted up right above my Cintiq, so I can basically plunk this off of the magnetic stand here and stick it over my Cintiq so I can use it as an external monitor, which I use all the time. And again, beautiful build quality, very thoughtful design. My only wish list thing was, wouldn't it be nice if they could make something for artists, right? Because, well, artists make up a huge demographic when it comes to iPad Pro usage, right? We have some of the best painting apps. It's very versatile. It's very powerful. We have Procreate, we have Art Studio Pro, etc. Well, they must have seen that, because they reached out to me and they said, actually, Adam, we've already been working on it. And they sent me a couple of sketches of their first prototypes, their first design ideas. And, well, I was extremely excited to see that, because I could tell that they were putting this incredible innovation, build quality, and thoughtfulness into a product exclusively for artists. And that's what brings us to today, where I get to share a first look at this prototype, not final. In fact, there's a couple of design updates since I've received this prototype. And this is what they're going to be calling the CharGen Pro Sketch 360, a portable artist stand. Okay, so I'm going to open it up. You flip it open like this and take the stand out and boop, you're all set up like this. But before I actually set up my iPad in it, I'm going to give you a quick tour of the features here. Number one, it's got this nice ribbed base that's made of a nice felt material. I do know it's going to be made of plastic. I asked her, but it's going to be very high quality plastic for lightness and stability and portability. But if you look in the back here, you can see on the back, you've got an Oculus. This is where the Apple logo is, but it's also a vent, and they have a nice vented back, a nice cutout for the camera, although I don't think I'm going to be taking pictures with this like that, but hey, I guess it's just for fit. And over here, you can see there's a couple of buttons over here. Okay, look in the front. Your iPad sockets into here. Here's the groove for your pen. And you got a little bit of a groove over here as well, a little bit of hole, which I'll explain in a sec. But the reason why you saw that bump on the stand is because if you look here on the back of here, you can actually close the iPad in when the iPad is still magnetically attached, because it's magnetic. So this means you don't have to take off your pen when you're using it, which is really, really great. So you flip it open. It's very light, very portable. It's a nice, reasonable size. You set it up in a stand, and it's got many ridges over here in the back. So I can set it up really low if I want to, or I can set it up really high, almost completely vertical, which is essential for any artist. You want to be able to get that full range of adjustability and get it perfectly lined up with your eye line. So you're looking at something perfectly perpendicular. Now, it's magnetic. So you grab your iPad. In my opinion, stick it in the bottom like that. Make sure it's grooved in the bottom. And just let it fall into place. And this, like I said, it's magnetic. So if I take this and I tip it forward, it doesn't fall out. Now I have my hand there just to be safe, right? You don't want to do that on purpose necessarily. But if you grab it like that, there's no fear that it's going to fall out and go smashing on the ground, okay? Which gives you some nice peace of mind, holds it in place really nicely. Now, since I got in touch with them, I had a couple of suggestions from the perspective of somebody who works every single day and knows all those little quirks, those little nuances, those little irritations that can happen with certain design features that could be there with a little bit of thoughtfulness. And what blew me away to this day was every single time I had a suggestion, they were always one step ahead of me and presented to me in their already existing sketch, their design sketches, that had already been implemented into it. And I thought to myself, you must be working very closely with a lot of artists or have artists on the team that do this, because they thought of everything from an artist's perspective. My first, for instance, was I like to use a pen grip when I'm drawing, right? My personal pen grip of preference is the one by Paperlike, because you can magnetize it while the grip's on. I hate having to take these pen grips off when I'm charging my pen or if I'm magnetizing my pen somewhere. And this one has a nice flat side to it. So I don't want to have to take my grip off every single time I want to mount my pen up on my iPad. And they said, we already thought of that. There's plenty enough clearance for a pen grip up here, as you can see. There you go. And it's very easy to get it out. There you go, okay? I'm not sure, but for the last design iteration I saw, I think there might have added even a little bit more space so you could even more quickly grab your pen off, if I'm not mistaken, but don't quote me on that. But I remember seeing something along those lines around the pen area. But this grips in really, really nicely. Just a couple of days ago, I reached out to them and I said, here's another thing. This iPad sits very perfectly flush right inside the borders of this socket that you magnetize your iPad to. How do I access the volume buttons and the power button, right? Furthermore, if I want to take my iPad out, do I have to take the pen off to pull it out like that? And she said, yes, you do, for a couple of reasons. Number one is you want to make sure that you're not pulling it out from the side, because if you do it, there's a risk it can fall out. So you want to have to go through the extra gesture of taking the pen off, so when you're pulling it off in a stable way. You've got a good, secure grip before you pull it off of the stand. See, I didn't think of that, but they did, okay? However, that's where the buttons on the back come in. I don't want to have to lift my pen out to adjust volume, or power it off. I just reach around the back, and right around the back I can feel the volume buttons and the power button that stick out nice and deep buttons, so you can very easily find them in the back, and you just adjust your volume accordingly. Or you can lock your button so you don't have to take it out every single time you lock it. Isn't that thoughtful? Now, the last feature that we can see here that I want to talk about is the groove. This is a space that's going to perfectly fit in their proprietary ChargeN Pro angled connector. And the reason I'm saying this is because, although I'm sure you can find them on Amazon now, ChargeN Pro were the first company that produced USB-C cables that had a nice hook shape to it, that were perfectly designed for iPads and people who wanted to have a nice discrete setup. And they are my go-to. I have like 5 or 6 of them in my studio, because normally you have a cable sticking out the side of your iPad like this. But what their angled connector does is it just wraps it around, so all you see is this little tiny little black piece of plastic just sticking out the side, and it creates for a nice discrete setup. So you don't have to worry about cables sticking out or knocking them and breaking them, which is a big gripe of mine. And furthermore, if you look at their ChargeN Pro stand, you see it's got a little groove for the actual cable. So the cable routes through the back, comes out through the back, and then you have a nice run that goes behind your table. It doesn't stick out the side off the side of your table, which is just terrible. Well, that same cable is going to perfectly fit into this little, if I can get it to look here, this little finger groove right over here. And it'll fit the cable, but it also has a second purpose. If I stick my finger in there, it rotates, okay? And the purpose of that is to actually be able to orient your iPad in portrait or landscape. So it checks all the boxes. Now, that said, there's one update they just sent me, which is a very meaningful update, a couple actually. One was, my suggestion was make sure that on the base here, it's got a nice grippy feet or a nice grippy base, because this current design slides a little bit too easily. They're already working on it. The second thing is they just, in this new version that they sent me, they did something really awesome that I didn't even think of asking, but makes a world of difference. They are removing a little bit off the top, and they're adding a little bit at the bottom, bezel-wise. And the reason why this is massive is because, if I demonstrate it for you, from an ergonomic perspective, there's a reason why this one first place, and not your standard desktop easel for the iPad. When I'm drawing, I don't like to draw with my hand close to the table, because look what happens, if I try to line it up so you can see it, look what happens to my wrist when my hand comes close to the table. Right now my wrist is nice and straight, you can see the nice alignment of my wrist, but as I come towards the base, look at how my wrist starts to pinch right there. This is where carpal tunnel syndrome comes from, along with neck issues and stuff like that, right? But you can see how this is not at all an ergonomic or comfortable way to draw, nor is it good for you to do over a long period of time. So by drawing on an elevated stand, this allows me, This allows you to straighten up and have a straighter wrist when you're drawing. Well, by lifting up this, you're going to see it goes from having this iPad that's a little bit too low for drawing, and just by elevating it an inch, it's going to allow me to have a nice, comfortable, straight wrist, and I've immediately taken the strain off of this little pinch in the corner where my thumb is. Okay? So little thoughtful designs like this that put them on the map, that just goes to show how cleverness and thoughtfulness, how much they communicate with the people that they're producing these products for. And to be completely honest with you, for a company of Charge Pro's quality that produce the best quality on the market for iPad Pro accessories, and the fact that they're recognizing the importance that the important demographic that artists are in the iPad Pro creative space, we're one of the primary, tattoo artists and concept artists and illustrators and animators. We make a lot of use out of these iPads. In fact, half of my students now work exclusively on the iPad using Procreate or Art Studio Pro. So I'm going to leave a link in the description below. And if you have any suggestions that we might not have thought of here, because there's a lot of clever artists out there that might have thought of something that we didn't think of, let us know in the comments below as well. All right? Talk to you soon. Take care.